there's not a whole lot of drama in this gospel that we have today. And there's a lot of things that are missing. It's like one of those games where they show you a picture with everything in it, and then they show you the picture without some things in it, and you have to guess what is missing. The first thing is there's a big chunk of the story that's missing. We hear verses 30 through 34, and then we skip a big chunk and move to 53 and 56. So he's going to the shore. Happens twice. He's going to actually two different shores and two different destinations, and they've glommed it into one for our reading's purpose. But there's a point to this. What's left out in that middle section is the feeding of the 5,000 and walking on water, Jesus walking on water. So there's the big reading, and this one feels like it's a little extra, and it sandwiches that big reading in between it. So this is the bread of the sandwich. We get both sides of toast, but we don't get the middle. Now, it starts off, you really have to read the whole of chapter 6 to know what is happening here, but Jesus first he invites all the disciples to come and follow him, and then in a few pages, it happens very quickly in Mark, he sends them out, calls them apostles, and they are to go out and exorcise demons from people, to heal people, make them walk again, to forgive their sins, and to teach them about the good news and the need to repent. And that's the sermon a couple weeks ago, where you have to take a staff, and take your sandals, take your healing oil, you're going to be busy. Now they've come back, and that's what they're doing. They've just come back, and they have indeed done all of these things. They have healed people. They have taught the gospel. They are tired. They are weary. They've had enough of the people. And Jesus says words to them that just lift up their spirits. Good work, everybody. And now it is time to come away to a deserted place with me, just us, and we will take our rest. And they must be so ready for this. So where is it? Do you see that rest in this reading? If you read this looking for the rest, you will find that it's missing. Yes, it does come in those verses that are not here, that we don't have, but it's only rest for Jesus. He goes up to the mountaintop alone to pray, and he sends his disciples off in a boat. Again, they're going to a boat to another shore, and they don't get to rest. What is that about? And when we see what's happening on the shore, they are not mentioned. There's another thing missing. When Jesus lands, he is the one that does all the teaching and all the healing and moving about like he's a whirligig with all these people being drawn into the centrifugal force, or centripetal force, if you're drawn in, I think it's the opposite, where he's just this whirling dervish of healing, forgiveness, peace, reconciliation, making the world right. And where are the disciples? It's very odd reading, isn't it, without them? So we can postulate where they are, but let's first focus on what Jesus is doing. What happened immediately before these verses is that Herod decreed that John the Baptist would be beheaded. It was that horrible reading from last week, where we did get some good news out of it at the end. But once Herod has decreed that John the Baptist must die, Jesus knows his days are numbered, and we as the readers of the gospel know that his days are numbered. We 2,000 years later know that Jesus' days were numbered. He only had 3 years of active ministry. And even though we're only in chapter 6 of Mark, Mark starts talking about this crucifixion within the next page. So the crucifixion is coming quickly on Jesus' heels. He has no time to lose. So yes, he's going in a boat with his disciples from shore to another shore to another shore, and he's healing and reconciling and being the good news in the middle of the people. And the most striking description of him is when he says, or when we hear what his thoughts are, he looked with compassion on them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. So comparing Herod, that was in the previous few verses, with Jesus, which leader would you choose? Herod, who filled his birthday party full of courtesans and dancers and bigwigs and political allies, or Jesus, who turns the kingdom upside down and is bringing in the reprobates, the poorest of the poor, the people with leprosy, the prostitutes. The last will be first. The first will be last. And there is a political reason for why they are being gathered in the marketplace. You look at these cities in the ancient Near East, and they were Roman settlements. The Roman occupation was going on. The marketplaces, both in the big cities and out in the villages, was the place for business. It's where people made speeches for different causes. It's where rulers made proclamations. It's where the marketplace is, where there's lots of merchandising and product pushing, and lots of money everywhere, money, money. And people have agendas. It's a busy, full place. But is there any marketing going on in these readings? No marketing, no pronouncements. Only this marketplace that is bereft of anything except the neediest people in the world. The neediest of the neediest. And they don't stop coming. Even as he's healing, more and more people are coming in, bringing them on mats and bringing them with crutches and bringing them over their shoulders. It's nonstop, and Jesus is nonstop. They're reaching out and touching the fringe of his cloak. What reading does that remind you of? The woman with the discharge, remember we just had it a few weeks ago, that she touched his robes and he whipped around and said, I felt the power going out of me. So they're touching the fringe of his cloak, and they are being healed, all of them. And there's no decisions of who's first in line. Notice this, it's very all-inclusive. Everybody gets healed. Everybody. So, this makes us stop and think about what time we have left. When we see Jesus' ministry in terms of promising his disciples rest, and they don't get it, does this give us license to be workaholics? Some people get that out of this, so I have to be clear that that's not what this is about. Jesus says, hold that thought. Yes, you're going to have your rest. I promise you. But at the moment, these people need a shepherd, and I've called you all to be shepherds. So if you're not actively feeding, then you're lying on the ground actively getting fed. You can choose one or the other. Maybe you need to be fed today, but if you're not being fed, you need to go out there and feed them. It's not easy. When I go into New York, I see the same people at the same corners with the same sign week after week. One guy sits in the main entrance into Grand Central Station, and he blocks the door open with his wheelchair so that if you go through his open door, he holds out his bag for you to put a coin in or a dollar bill. And he says in a very grating voice that never changes, does anyone have a dollar? Does anyone have a dollar? I need a dollar. Does anyone have a dollar? Does anyone have a dollar? So if you stand back and look, you see people parting at the man and going in any door but the door with the man who wants a dollar. Now Jesus would be there, right? It wouldn't bother him that he has a grating voice and is blocking the door so that he can catch you and you have to give him a dollar. No discrimination. Does the man need a dollar? He needs a dollar. But I'm one of those that goes off to another door because I'm on my day off and I don't have time for the irritating sound. And that's okay too. We're forgiven. We don't have to give a dollar to everybody. But the gist of this the disappearing disciple story, which is what this is that they are probably, we don't know for sure, they are with Jesus, all of them, helping him to serve all these people, knowing that their rest will come, their final rest, when Jesus rises from the dead and gives us one foot in heaven and one foot on earth, so that we know what's promised to us but we also know that we have to work hard because life is short.